We know that Black history is American history, too often limited to tales of blood and struggle, and less portrayed in stories of joy and unsurpassed achievement. Colorado is particularly rich in this history, as evidenced by the many figures living in our state who embody the challenges and triumphs unique to Black people. High school student Joshua Ray had the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to sit down with Ed Dwight, the first Black astronaut candidate and acclaimed sculptor. Ed Dwight's artistic portfolio is nothing short of prolific, amazingly so. His body of work includes memorials and sculptures across the country depicting the Underground Railroad, the historical roots of jazz, Frederick Douglass, Martin Luther King Jr., Rosa Parks, President Barack Obama, to name but a few. Mr. Dwight is credited with committing history to physical memory in places like Austin, Texas, with a 40-foot-long, 26-foot-tall memorial to African American history. And of course, his 27-foot-tall cylindrical Tower of Reconciliation, located in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Joshua spoke with Mr. Dwight at Ed Dwight's Denver-based art studio. Not surprisingly, Joshua sought words of advice for young people like himself.
Well, I'm Joshua Ray, and it is an honor to sit down here and interview you.
Well, Joshua, I'm Ed Dwight, and I'm a sculptor. I've done a lot of other things in my life besides sculpting, but that thing on the gravestone, I wanted to read sculpture par excellence and stuff.
I think you did a lot of great things to bring young African Americans like myself to reach and go to different levels, and you inspire many people, so I just want to thank you for that. And my first question is, who has inspired you in your life to shape you as the person that you are now?
Yeah. Well, I have to start with the basics, my mom set an interesting table for me because I started school when I was 2 years old, and she had me in every art class, and got me a library card at 4, and got me on as an altar boy when I was 5, and got me in the Cub Scouts when I was 6, and Boy Scouts when I was 7, and it just went on with her kind of guiding. My mom had a college degree, so she kind of knew where she was coming from, and of course, since I was a little kid, she took care to show me what the world was all about, and then what kind of things that grew that made food, and gave me lessons on the Milky Way and orbital mechanics that I ended up finding out. I didn't know what orbital mechanics was until I got in the space program, and my mother was teaching me all this stuff when I was 3 or 4 years old. And then my dad, in a kind of a different approach, he was not a very talkative. He was kind of, he went to the 10th grade school and dropped out of school. But what was magic about watching my dad and the contrast between him and how educated my mom was, but my dad had something to offset that, and he left school at the age of 16 to play professional baseball. So he played in the Negro Baseball League and was a star in the Negro Baseball League, with the 10th grade education. But at the end of the day, things come together in strange ways. The owner of the Kansas City Monarchs baseball team, his brother was a PhD chemist. So when my dad left baseball, he got my dad a job working in his chemical lab. And 20 years later, my dad was the chief chemist of the state grain department for the state of Kansas. So now you say, what in the world, how could that happen? I mean, this guy with a 10th grade education, and he was a George Washington Carver of chemistry, and the guy was brilliant as a chemist, but he was taught by the right people, and so I have to give it props to both my mom and dad, but I didn't ever have any trouble getting mentors. Because as a kid, I was always doing things. The guy by the name of Phil Borth that owned KC Photo, And I got a job working for him, delivering film for him at 15. And the reason I'm saying, because all these guys, you asked a question about mentorship, and naturally I'm going to school. It was a part-time job, naturally. And I was so precocious to him. This guy taught me film, photography. And next thing you know, I'm in charge of his developing room. When I turned 17 or 18, this man, a 60-year-old man who had been in that business his whole life, offered me his business. And he said, I'll sell it to you for nothing, because I'd been working for this guy for a couple of years, right? And I had known, these people outside didn't know that I was developing their film, he put me in charge of the film room and the whole thing, and the enlarging room, and I knew photography. And I was this kid, and this man was going to give me his business. And well, what's up with that, you know? But I chose to join the Air Force instead, and this guy got mad at me. I mean, he said, how dare you? You're perfect for this job. And so why wouldn't you take it? This is an opportunity. But my mom pulled my coattail, and she said, son, if he gave you that business, do you think all the rest of those white businesses are going to continue to do business with this guy, with the company? And the answer was no. But I had mentors coming out of the woodwork everywhere, and I came to the conclusion, the more things that you're really interested in, and you do them well, whatever they are, mentors start falling out of the sky.
You are many different things, and a number of titles, including the first African-American astronaut candidate, an engineer, and a sculptor. What drives you to be motivated to accomplish all these things?
Well, Mom taught me that, first of all, she told me how wonderful America was, and about people who need things. And that the best thing I could do was to start, when I got to be a real guy, to start fulfilling the needs of folks and stuff. And I look back on everything I've done, and it all dropped out as a need pattern. When I saw somebody that needed something, I was there. Because when I was in the Boy Scouts, if you help a little old lady across the street, you get across the street too, And I adopted that attitude. And when I got in the military, I started changing things that I could change at my level. And the black enlisted kids that came in, I mentored them and to help them out, and they died just saying, I want to go to work for Lieutenant Dwight, because he gets in and understands what we're doing, and to help us, because I saw a pattern happening in the military, and I was an officer, right? And I would sit and watch. You'd have black enlisted people that had been there for a time, and these white kids would come in, and the blacks would train them. And next thing you know, these white kids are getting promoted over the people that trained them. But I just saw it was an inequity, and I just there's something wrong with that. And the same thing happened when we were trained, when I was a flight instructor. We were training pilots from all over the world. They gave me all the white guys from Norway and Denmark, and they gave all the brown guys from Iraq, Iran, Turkey, Japan, and they gave them to the white guys. Okay, and they were washing these brown guys out like you won't believe. And so I went to Captain Joseph. I said, Captain Joseph, I said, what's going on here? I said, all these white guys that are graduating, all my guys are white and all that kind of stuff, and the other guys had their white guys too. But all the brown guys are getting washed out. What's going on? And Captain Joseph said, it's none of your business. And so about a week later, and apparently he had done a little bit of research, he calls me in and says, Lieutenant Dwight, you're right. I said, what's your solution? I said, well, give all the brown ones to me. And I started graduating these kids. And it didn't have a dang thing to do with their qualifications at all. It had to do with the language barrier. Because these white guys are saying, do this, and there's a language and flying away. And these guys didn't understand that, because a lot of buzzwords in flying, that a white kid would understand that they didn't understand. And I was graduating these kids like you won't believe, and I got an award for that, And so you ask me why I do this stuff, and it has to be when I see something that's out of kilter, out of whack. First of all, I got to decide whether I can do anything about it or not. But when opportunities came that I could do something about it, well, hell, I didn't care anything about it being none of my business. I just thought there was something wrong with it.
When did you realize that sculpting would be your career? Did this come easy for you?
When I realized that art was going to be my career, I was two. I was 2 years old. But I had this knack for making images from the beginning, and I got a scholarship out of high school. I had won the first 3 ribbons in the Kansas art competition in the state of Kansas, and that had never been done before. And so the nuns, I went to a private Catholic school, so the nuns took it to Kansas City Art Institute, took those paintings over there, and they gave me a scholarship to go be the first black to go to the Kansas City Art Institute. So I was heading straight for the art world. And my dad sat down and got a hold of me, and he said, "What are you going to do?" I said, I'm going to be an artist. He said, "No, you're not." He said, "I'm not going to take care of you the rest of your life, boy." And so I said, "What do you think I should be doing?" She said, "You're going to engineering school." And I said, "Well, what do they do?" He said, "What do you mean, what do they do?" In my brain, we had a railroad track that went right past the farm every day. And I'd go out there and I'd wave at the engineer that's driving the train. So my old man told me I was going to be an engineer. I said, "Dad, I don't want to drive no train." And he said, "What the hell's wrong with you, boy? You crazy?" But I'm talking about an engineer. I said, "Well, what do they do?" And he said, "They make money." That's all you need to know. They have architectural engineering. And so I can draw. So I went to college, and I was going to be an architectural engineer, and that would satisfy him. And I could draw, I could still draw and design things and stuff like that, And so anyway, that's where I was headed. I got an opportunity to be a pilot, so I chose that.
How do you feel about your life's pathway?
Well, when you're doing it, you don't think in those terms. To me, everything I've ever done is all connected to each other. I mean, there's nothing, because people look at it and say, "Well, what are you talking about? You was over here doing astronaut stuff and military stuff, and over here you're building buildings over here, and over here you got this big restaurant chain, you're selling people food, and and over here you got this thing going, and over here you got that thing going." And to me, that was all connected. To me, it was all connected together. And there were opportunities. Every single one of those things was a classic opportunity to do something bigger and better than I had done before. But it had to do with helping folks. It was every one of those things I did was helping to fulfill a need. Because when I got into the construction business, the need was black housing in Denver, Colorado. There was no black housing hardly. We didn't have kind of big time ghettos with hundreds and hundreds of apartments like Chicago and some of these other places. We didn't have that, and it was 60,000 blacks in the state of Colorado. And you go back east, there's 60,000 blacks in 4 or 5 blocks, and so we didn't have that impact of stuff, but this stuff did come up about where does black housing exist? Is there black housing? Is there a need for black housing in Denver? Because when I first came to Colorado, blacks could not live east of York Street, okay, which is not far from here. After I got out of the military, I came to Denver, and I was the first black to live on Montville Boulevard, across the street from the museum. In my restaurant chain, I'm from Kansas City, and they have good barbecue in Kansas City. So obviously, I wanted some barbecue, Kansas City barbecue in Denver. And so I built my own barbecue rib chain, and I designed my own barbecue sauce and hooked up with the Department of Agriculture for all my recipes. I designed it. Took me a year. So I had 5 restaurants, one in Fort Collins and one downtown and one in Inglewood, one on West Colfax and one on Colorado Boulevard. So anyway, I had all these restaurants, but I did it so we could have some good barbecue in Denver, you know. So as a result of that, to answer your question, all of these things all kind of fit together in a larger plan to bring equity, if you will, to things that were needed. But those are the challenges, and it was the whole thing. It was a bunch of fun when you sit down to think about it, you know. So I've done all of these things, but it was fulfilling a need.
What is or has been important to you?
What's kind of important to me? Like I'm kind of losing my eyesight now, and the thing I don't worry about. I'm not worried about the money. If I stop doing what I'm doing right now, I don't worry about the money. I kind of worry a little bit about missing what I'm doing because I love what I do. You know what I mean? But the thing that's critical to me is my clients. All the rest of the stuff can go. If I never made another dime in my life, I want these clients to be happy, and I want them to finish their dream because they come to me to manifest their dream. You know, and I got a group of people that I make commitments to, and that's one of the things that's important to me right now is making them happy. Nothing else.
What would you say to a young person like me who's about to set foot on their own path?
Well, you know, the world is wide, especially today. The world is wide open for you to do anything you want, any dream you could possibly have. And it's all about preparing for it and getting ready for it. And if you're really interested in something, there's Google. There are things where you can do research you can't believe, okay? There's Wikipedia. All this stuff that Wikipedia gives you came from books. And if you go down to the bibliography, there's all those books that they got it from. So that's where I went, you know, for the information that I needed. And I went and got those books wherever they were, through Amazon or whatever, to sit down and figure out, you know, where was I going to be prepared for what this dream, if I had a dream. First of all, you got to get a dream. That's the first order of business, okay? What are you interested in? And you really got to be interested in it, whatever it is. It doesn't make any difference, you know. But be the best, whatever it is that you can be. Because in everything that we talked about just now had to do with people coming to me and offering me stuff. Hardly any of that stuff, except for the barbecue rib thing, you know, came from Dwight. But the rest of the stuff, people came to me and said, I think you can do this. Or I'm offering you an opportunity to do this. Whether it was flying, whether it was the astronaut, the whole astronaut thing was all about that. It was about my body of work. What was I doing? How good was I doing it? Was I at the top of my game? And so when the president was looking for a black astronaut, I mean, they had to go find one. Where do you find a black astronaut? So you go find somebody that's been doing something really, really well and getting rewarded for it. And that's how they, out of all the black pilots in the world at that time, why they had Dwight? What was it about me? And it was my body of work. Because I had done it very, very well. And I was getting an award every other month, either just finishing another college thing or fixing something within the operational unit that I was in. And I had the greatest jobs in the world, and I did them all well. But I worked my fanny off to get ready for them, whether I was doing the intelligence briefing to the general staff. And, you know, I was on the San Francisco Air Traffic Control Board. I was the youngest member of the Air Traffic Control Board. And I'm on a board as a captain in my 20s with 7 company presidents of 7 airlines. What's that all about? You know, and what that was all about, was that I volunteered to go to air traffic control school in Oklahoma City when the opportunity came up to do that. You know, and I had done all that stuff and did it well. So when the president came to look for a black astronaut, my name fell out. You know, here's a guy that can, man, this guy, he's doing everything seemingly very, very well. And the requirement was the last 3 effectiveness reports that you had that the officers get every year, the last 3 had to be rated outstanding for me to become an astronaut, okay? Well, my last 4 were rated outstanding. And so it's that kind of stuff I'm saying. That, but whatever the dream is, you got to stay with it, find a mentor, and listen to what he says. And it was great to have you here in my studio and being interested in doing this stuff and interviewing me. And so this is absolutely phenomenal. And I hope you walk away with something from here. I mean, I really hope that talking to me and being in this environment with all these people who are trying to do great things is just to listen to what they're saying. And if you got it, anything that you need answers to after this whole thing is over, give me a holler and just give me a ring to say, hey, Mr. Dwight, what would you do in a case like this? All right, well, thanks a lot again. Okay.
To learn more about Mr. Dwight's continuing artistic inspirations and to view his incredible sculptural masterpieces, please visit eddwight.com. To continue the growth and development of educational and community resources centering Black folks, we invite you to both support and plan to visit History Colorado's Black History and Cultural Heritage Department, the Blair Caldwell African American Research Library, the Black American West Museum and Heritage Center, and the Center for African and African American Studies on the CU Boulder campus.